we're told that EASL was contemplating on a mini expansion for next season and a major expansion in 2 seasons, going from 8 to 16 teams. Is that plan still in the works?
The schedule for next season is finished, and it'll be 8 teams. And
Next season?
this coming season,
Yeah.
2024, 2025. That's 8
Still
teams.
be 8 teams.
8 teams, and then we're expanding to 16 teams after that. Yep.
And the expansion to 16 teams will mean teams from mainland China, you think?
It'll be mainland China. It'll be other leagues as well that we're finalizing, and so you'll see a lot more leagues participating, which will be great.
So next season will still be 8 teams.
That's right.
But after that, will it still be 2 teams each from the pioneer leagues?
There's going to be some increases from some of the leagues, most likely, but the reality is we'd like to keep it the champion and the runner-up. Obviously, the Philippines is very unique because unlike every other league, we have 3 conferences, right? And so sometimes, the discussion can be, is it the champion of the Commissioner's Cup and the Governor's Cup? Is it the runner-up from the, Governor's Cup and the champion of the Governor's Cup? So I think the PBA is unique, and we're going to formalize it more going forward. But the other leagues are very simple: winner, second place. That's how it works.
Does that mean more teams for the PBA?
No, I think it just means how we qualify them is going to be something that we formalize going forward.
So Henry, when you say China, would it be the CEO?
We're working on that. Obviously we have a lot of dialogue and we have a lot of plans. I think we'll know more very soon. But China is the largest market of basketball in Asia, and it's some of the largest fan base in the world. So obviously having that in EASL is something that we aspire to. And so it'll be a big part of our expansion plans.
How about the other leagues we're talking about? Are you seeing what Indonesia, Thailand, like that?
Indonesia is really exciting. I don't know if you've seen just in the last year how much they've invested in that league. And obviously in the national team, we've seen it when the SEA Games played Gilas. But it's a lot of good investment going into the Indonesian league. It's a lot of positive developments that we haven't seen in 20 years. And so our expectation is that that league will continue to grow very, very strong. If you look at Indonesia 15 years ago, it was a football country. It was a badminton country. Basketball wasn't like it is in the Philippines. It wasn't part of people's sports culture. That's changed. And the young people in Jakarta, the young people in the major cities, they're basketball fans. And that's being reflected in the investments they're doing national team and in the leagues. So my view is that, as that grows, it's going to be a market we want to be in. I think Thailand is more developed in terms of basketball. Obviously, Vietnam has a history of that, playing in the ABL, and Singapore as well. All of these markets right now are moving very quickly, and there's a lot of investment going into basketball, and it's changing very quickly. So it's really exciting for Southeast Asia, and obviously EASL wants to incorporate that. All of our markets are in the same time zone. Our broadcast is for everyone, so it's not complicated. We don't have to say, oh, these guys are asleep, these guys are awake. The travel times are pretty easy. From Manila, you can get to Hanoi, you can get to Ho Chi Minh, you can get to Singapore, you can get to anywhere, very quickly. So from a logistics perspective as well, it's something that makes sense.
This season is a milestone for EASL in the sense that you guys finally pulled off the home and away format. Can you describe the challenges and the successes of the team to finally make that format come true for this season?
For sure. I think a lot of us forget, but it was only last year in March that Hong Kong still had mask restrictions, travel restrictions. and that was a huge inhibitor to international sports. If you wanted to travel on a Tuesday, play a game on a Wednesday, be home on a Thursday for your domestic league. And so the season really started, I would say, in a rushed way because there was not much time. And even small things that you guys wouldn't be aware of, but even getting international insurance on an event. A lot of insurance companies pulled out of it in Asia, Chubb or AXA. So if you wanted to event insurance or liability insurance, there was no one in the market. And so obviously that's come back, but there was a lot of macro issues that were affecting people's ability to travel. Airlines were running at 20%, and so flights were disrupted. So our goal was do the season in efficient and focus on the basketball and focus on the product. And I think we started the season very well doing that. And we started really focusing with our media partners on the marketing. In our first games in October, we were averaging 850 to 890,000 viewers per game. And towards the end of the season, we were averaging 4.5 to 5 million viewers a game. And that's the fans being like, okay, we get it. Okay, we understand. Wow, this basketball is good. And it's competitive and it's premium. And so obviously we're really happy about that. And you guys saw on the court last night, Chiba versus NTK, that was great basketball. That's what we should be delivering every single game. You got the champions of all these leagues head to head. They play different styles and they expose each other's weaknesses very quickly. And so I think the fans understand that. And going into next season, I think we're going to start on a very strong base and obviously grow that as well. So there's a lot of stuff we learned in getting this off this season. Our team, ends this season tomorrow on March 10th, and on March 11th we start our new season. And we're very focused on making sure that the product gets better and better and better, not just from the basketball perspective, but from the fan experience perspective, and then the marketing perspective as well.
The schedule for the season this year mostly coincides with the regular season of all the partner leagues involved. Was that a conscious decision on your part in collaboration with the other leagues to kind of shed the preseason tag of the previous East Asia Super League tournaments and in turn promote more of a competitive environment?
Yeah, I mean, look, we were an events business before, and now we're running a league. Those events were really important, not just to show ourselves that we can do this, but to show the leagues that there's value in what we're doing. And so those events were great, high intensity, 1 week, going preseason. But obviously the dream and the objective was always to be like a Euro League, like a UEFA Champions League, to be integrated into those schedules in the regular season. All of these leagues have their own schedules. I can't tell you how hard it is to say, how do we agree to a new schedule that's in your own? But actually, it was easier than we thought because all the leagues want to do this. And obviously we carved out Wednesdays. And that was something that everyone agreed to. And then it was really about scheduling that, and our season schedule for next year is done. And, I think it's going to be very fluid.
You said the schedule for next season is already done?
Yeah, confirmed. Yeah.
Okay, so when will we start?
I think we'll make the announcement on the season schedule in late March or early April.
Is there a chance that there will be a revival of the Bay Area Rapids?
No.
No?
No. I can say that very confidently.
Not owned by the league, but owned by maybe...
There's a lot of people that want to do it. I'm happy to give my inputs and advice, and I think it was great. I mean, just look at what we did in the PBA, right? We hit a record at Araneta, we hit a record at MOA, we hit a record in Bulacan at Philippine Arena in our first year. Game 7 against Ginebra. You can't make that up. It was incredible. That was a premium team playing against premium teams like Ginebra, and that's what Filipino fans wanted. I think the PBA has a lot of interesting and new strategies they're going to be implementing. I'm not privy to them, but if there is an expansion team, I guarantee you there's going to be someone that wants to take that because there's just a lot of opportunities there. So I'm not, aware of anything. Obviously, the Bay Area Dragons itself as a team, the players all wanted to come back. A lot of the fans wanted to come back. Our business is a league. We're running a neutral league. We don't want to get involved in teams going forward. As fun as it is, it's really a conflict of interest, and we want to maintain that neutrality going forward. So
Have you had offers from any?
we've had a lot of talks on it.
investors, really?
Oh yeah,
To own the Bay Area Dragons
to do their thing, yeah.
and revive it?
Yeah, but it's not something that we're getting involved in. So if that would be the case, that's between the PBA and what they want to do as well, right?
Sir, you mentioned that I know you mentioned that you're a neutral league because you have a lot of partner leagues, but how important is it for the EASL to have a competitive Philippine team moving forward? Because obviously in the past two tournaments, the Philippine teams have struggled a bit. So how important is it for you?
Look, the PBA is difficult because the conference system, and then also the one import. And it's something I'm really trying to work on in terms of understanding how to make it more fair. Because you could get, Steph Curry on your team. If he's never played with those guys, and he's just playing in EASL, you're not going to have a competitive, not going to have a competitive team. It's going to be at a disadvantage, right? So I think it's important that we figure out how to get that roster fixed, so that they can carry those two imports, and that they can have that experience together, just like all the other teams do. But the other thing is that PBA does have different conferences, and essentially plays 11 months of the year. Again, it's the first season running this. I think a lot of the issues were with us. It wasn't with the PBA. It just so happened TNT and Morocco had injuries too. A lot of injuries, and that was just unfortunate. If that was a fully stacked team and they were healthy, and including the imports being healthy, I think you would have seen a very, very different outcome. I've been around basketball for a while, including when we did the tournaments in Macau, and people talk, oh, the CBA is going to come in and beat everyone. I'm like, you don't know what you don't know. The Koreans are serious, the Japanese obviously are serious. If the PBA, like Ginebra or San Miguel, who just won, if those guys show up, I guarantee you it would be, I'm not going to say they're going to win, but they would have no problem competing.
But are there talks about maybe adjusting the rules on the imports? Because you mentioned about the one import, but Korea also has, I think they also have a different rules on imports, if I'm not mistaken. And Japan has
6-8.
its own. So is there plans to maybe make some changes in order for it to be fair to everyone? Maybe
I think it's difficult to be a policeman on domestic rules. So an example, Philippines recognizes Phil-Ams as locals, right? But FIBA doesn't recognize them as locals. But we recognize them as locals, right? I think Japan right now is considering, again, this is just, I don't know if this is fact, but I think they're considering expanding the Asian import meaning. Right now, obviously 30, Kiefer, Kai Soto, all these guys are playing their Ramos, but that's because the definition of an Asian import is China, Korea, Philippines. If they expand that to include Australia, you're going to see Aussie Asian imports in the Japanese league. Are we going to have a problem saying, well, they have two imports and this guy and this guy? Maybe, but we have to respect the league rules of PBA, of B League, of KBL. I think what that does is it strengthens those teams and those leagues when they're playing against the best of the best. And all of the leagues and all of basketball in general is changing very quickly. Our job is to say, you have two imports, And if you consider them a local in your league, they're a local. And so that's what our policy is now. And I think going forward, there's going to be fine tuning in agreement with all the leagues. There's going to be fine tuning. We want to make it as fair as possible, but inevitably there's domestic changes that are happening. So.
Sir, this past season was TNT and Meralco. Obviously, Meralco didn't win the championship or make the finals. Next season, all can be assured that the PBA can send maybe the San Miguel or runner-up Magnolia or the Filipino champion for next season. Can be assured they can play.
Right. Obviously the Japan League finishes in essentially late May. The KBL is still underway. The P Plus League is still underway. So we have some time till we know which teams are playing. That's the same with the PBA. We're in discussions, and we'll know soon in terms of the qualification from PBA for next season.
When's the last time you talked with the PBA and how is it going so far in terms of the domestic changes and all the possibilities?
We talk to the PBA all the time. A lot of that is on, obviously we're in Cebu right now. This is PBA territory. We are guests here, and we had great support from the PBA coming here. So not just on the league side, but on the event side. In terms of rules and regulations, there's an ongoing dialogue around that. There's an ongoing dialogue with all the leagues on that. And so, I think after this season's finished tomorrow, that conversation with the PBA is going to pick up a lot in terms of what we've learned as a league, all the feedback from all the different leagues on, their questions, and that's the same with the PBA. And we'll try to address it all equally and transparently with everyone. But all of our discussions with ComWillie, all of our discussions with DEPCOM, Eric Castro, all of our conversations with a lot of the key stakeholders have been very positive. So we will make some adjustments as you do. It's our first time running the season, but we want to make sure it's consistent against all the leagues.
What is the significance of the presence of Mr. Blackman and Eric Kerins?
Oh, it's great. Dicky obviously came out of the PBA many years, so his experience at the PSC, I think he's one of the most educated guys on basketball in the whole country. When we said we wanted to do it in Cebu, he offered huge support on just giving us pointers, giving us advice. Obviously, that basketball court we're playing on was a PSC supported basketball court. They're very focused in investing not just Luzon, but also across the Visayas and in the Mindanao area. And so us bringing an event not to Metro Manila, but bringing it down to the Visayas as an international event, it's not something everyone does. They're like, why don't you do Araneta? Why don't you do MOA? Why don't you do, Bulacan? And it's like, we want to do something special and unique. And so obviously from the PSC side, and no official sort of support, but personally huge. And this couldn't have gotten down without, it could not have gotten done without PSC Chairman Dicky Bachman's support. I think on the SBP side, we don't have any sort of official, engagement there. But Erica is relatively new to join. Her focus is a huge amount on grassroots and a huge amount on international engagement. So I saw Erica in Hong Kong during the Gilas game. She was meeting with all those different relevant stakeholders, and she's also very focused on not just Metro Manila, but also their campaigns down here. I think they're doing an event in Toledo, which is a PSC close by here to Cebu City. But they were really excited that we were going to bring this down to Cebu as well. So, it's really important for us that we demonstrate to the stakeholders that we're investing in basketball in the grassroots, in the camps we're doing, also in the professional level, but we're aligned with what their objectives are, even if we're not officially partnered. So we made sure as best as possible that we understand what their objectives are and said, how can we help you achieve those? We're in this for the long term, and having a good relationship with PSC, with all the NSAs, but especially SBP, is really important for us. So maintaining that dialogue, but also making sure that however we can, support on their objectives. We got Coach Brian Gorgon here, doing camps. We're going to have, from now until the start of next season, a lot of our guys coming down and doing camps here, and try to align them with some of their objectives are. These aren't just media snaps where with kids, blah, 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 everyone goes home. That's not what we're trying to do. That's not our business. We're really trying to invest and do it for the long term. And those future champions programs, we've started small, but that's something that we're really going to invest in. It benefits us, it benefits our brand here, but obviously, the Philippines for us is one of our most important markets, and we have a firm commitment doing that going forward with not just the coaches, but some of our NBA ambassadors that we fly in the off season, and we want to make sure we're aligned with SBP, and we want to make sure we're aligned with PSC in terms of what their objectives are, and if we can help out in any way as well.
Sir, Henry, you already talked to PBA. Are they still going to send the champion teams for the EASL? Because San Miguel already wanted to do the company.
I think we need to figure out the definition of the champion team, and look, it's our first year. We're working through that, but when we define that, we'll be ready to make an announcement with who's going to be coming.
So now we have any team yet from the PBA?
There's not, no. We have an idea, but there's not defined. Yeah.
For the coming season, are you still keeping the format of the Final Four being on a neutral site?
We have 5 cities that have approached us to host the Final Four next year. What I can tell you is that we'll announce it before the season starts, so that everyone will know 6 months in advance where that Final Four is, and the fans can get excited. We can do activation programs around that and do it in a much better job. Obviously we would love to do it again here. If you know the SM is building a 25,000 seat arena, that's going to be beautiful. It's amazing. It's going to be the best arena in Asia at that time. And, we can bring in a concert, we can bring in a lot more entertainment in that type of arena, not just basketball. I guarantee you we have 6 months to plan that. It would be the best event to ever hit Cebu. And it would just be super. And obviously if we had a PBA team qualify, you're talking different. So, we're very focused on being more timely and being more efficient and making sure that we get stuff done earlier, especially the Final Four for next season.
The 5 cities that have approached you,
Yeah.
is one of them Cebu? The
Uh,
regular performance here?
It does not include Cebu, no. I mean, we're here now, and obviously this is our first time, but you've seen our support from Mayor Chan has been huge, and the local Lapu-Lapu city government. The support from the tourism board out of Manila and here has been amazing, but the reality is that we didn't have much time to plan this. You give us that runway to plan that, we can do much greater activations, and I think we're extremely happy with everything that has happened here in Cebu, and we have 1 colleague out of our team of 41 that is from Cebu. That's it. So all of us are guests. Some of us probably 90% first time here. So for us, we relied a lot on our local, partners, like the Lapu City government, even the Cebu City government, and the airport authority, etc. And so we've been very happy.
Is there a chance that Cebu will
Yes, for
host
sure.
again?
Absolutely.
And of the 5 cities, anyone from the Philippines?
No, just Cebu so far.
Sir, obviously you can control the...
That's just the start. I mean, we're talking to more cities going forward.
So obviously you can control who the champion, the PBA champion would be, but of course the most popular team here in the Philippines is Ginebra. So how will the participation of Ginebra, if ever, would contribute to the success of EASL in the next season?
Ginebra is the best run, not best run team, but it's the most mature franchise and the biggest following base. We all know that, and obviously we would love to have them and be honored to have them. I think all of those teams though are competitive, whether it's Ginebra, whether it's San Miguel, even TNT Morocco with the right sort of no injury issues. Even the independents now, I haven't been following the new conference that closely, but NLEX, Blackwater, and Magnolia, everyone's playing quite well right now. But from a fan base perspective, you're right. I just think about if we had Ginebra playing NTK last night, how crazy that would have been. We all know it would have been, amazing. You have all these heroes out there. But we think about where do we want to be in 5 years and where do we want to be in 10 years. And the reality is that we want Yuki Togashi to go on the court and Filipino fans to say, I see myself in him and he's a great player and I support him. And we want Filipino fans cheering on him, just like when, we have Filipino players playing in Japan, they can say the same thing. And that takes time. That takes the maturity and education of a property to grow. But if you look at the history of Champions League and you look at the history of, when it started in the 90s, the British fans didn't know the Barcelona players. Barcelona fans didn't know the Manchester United players. It took time, but over time, the Spanish players were like, I see myself in Ronaldo, or I see myself in Wayne Rooney. Maybe they didn't say that, but my point is that really, yes, we would love the Ginebra and the Ginebra fans, but our objective is getting more visibility for all of these franchises across all the markets so that you have fans in all these markets.
Sir, I would just like to clarify the EASL's policy on naturalized players. Like for example, if Ginebra were to qualify, would you consider Justin Brownlee as a local and they can bring in an additional 2 more imports?
It's the domestic rules. So even though Brownlee's naturalized, the PBA sees him as an import, right? So then we would see him as an import. Yeah. In Japan, if you have a naturalized player, I believe there's 8, then if you have a naturalized player, you don't get an Asian import, right? So that's why Chiba has Ira Brown. He's naturalized. They don't have an Asian import, right? So that's their rules. If the PBA said, okay, we're changing it, Brownlee's a local player, and you can have another import, then we would say he's a local player. Yeah, but according to PBA rules, Brownlee he's an import, even though he's naturalized. Look, the basketball's moving quickly. China has 0 naturalized player right now. They just lost to Japan for the first time in 88 years. I think they're thinking about naturalization. I think they're thinking about that. Maybe the PBA and the SPP are talking about not just having 1 or 2 naturalized, but having a broader group that they can choose from. I don't know. But you're going to have more and more guys in your league that are going to be international. And, whether they play as an import or as a local is going to be interesting. Don't forget, the PBA had an Asian import rule not that long ago. And it was great. If you remember, we had Koreans, we had Japanese, we had Iranian, right? We had all types playing in the PBA that year. And I don't remember the rules specifically, but I think they weren't counted as an import. That was just an Asian import, right? So you'll see a lot of changes in, basketball. The NBA now is 48% foreign passport holders, right? That's huge change from 10 years ago. That's huge. I think the Japanese league, honestly, when I think about how they think, they're like, we are an international league, and we want to be an international league. So they have imports, they have naturalized players, they're expanding that Asian import quota. You're going to look at the basketball, it's going to be very good, but at the end of the day, it's going to be just like the NBA, it's going to be an international teams. if the P Plus League expands their quota and says mainland Chinese are played as locals, wow, that's going to change the game. You're going to have mainland players playing on the P Plus as locals, right? Huge change. So all of these guys are changing. All of the changes affect all the other leagues. They do. When Japan opened the Asian import, that affected the PBA, right? KBL opened that Asian import, that affected PBA. I mean, we know that Renz is playing. Juan Gomez is playing, you know. So all of these things are happening, and they're happening quickly. I don't have control, obviously, on any of this, but I think if you ask me, is that going to continue to change in that direction? The answer is yes. It's going to continue to internationalize, and it's going to continue to sort of breaking down borders, and leagues are changing towards that.
Sir, could you talk about the league's role in trying to break that insular mentality, since Coach Brian Gordon said that teams rarely face each other like this, the international league. So could you talk about trying to integrate the teams of all the different leagues here in East Asia to improve the participating countries' role and development of basketball?
I'm not an expert like George, but I studied the EuroLeague quite closely when I started this. And when you looked at European basketball then, it was not as competitive at all. Luka Doncic would have not existed if it wasn't for EuroLeague. Jokic would not have existed if it wasn't for EuroLeague. The EuroLeague allowed players to compete at the highest level and allowed the cream to rise to the top, unlike any opportunity you have with domestic leagues. And that's just the fact. The other thing is that, and we have the data, but right now you got a 16-man Gilas roster with 12 guys, right? A lot of them are playing in Japan, but they're having international exposure. But Brian and I talk about this a lot, which is how many Filipino players have Gilas experience? How many that are playing in the PBA? So how many are not getting international experience? How many are not getting the experience to see how Japanese basketball is or Korean basketball is? We have a list. Here's the number of players that are in TNT and Meralco for this season that are not Gilas, that now have that experience and hard experience and international experience. When you get that on a consistent basis, you get better as a player, your ecosystem gets better, and your franchise gets better. That's just math. And so, obviously you have Gilas, they've done very well, and so they are playing a lot in the windows. They're playing now, I think, qualifying again in June. But you have guys that have a lot of international experience. We offer a platform to give a whole breadth of people a whole different sort of international experience that doesn't exist. If you participate in that, by definition, your programs get better. That just happens. If you sit on the sidelines and you just play your domestic league, you might have good Chinese basketball players, right? Or let's just say Vietnamese basketball players, but you're only knowing Vietnamese basketball. That's it. And when you start playing Korean-style basketball or Japanese-style basketball, you don't know how to adjust. You don't know how to defend. You might be a great player, but you don't have that experience. You're going to lose. And so I think it's just math. If you have increased competition, if you are playing better people on a consistent basis, and you're learning new styles, you get better, your teams get better, your programs get better. So I think ESL is a great opportunity for that.
During the press conference, you were asked a question about expansion, and then you said ESL would take a measured approach. What exactly does that mean, a measured approach?
I think we want to be very intentional and we want to be very deliberate, but we also want to do it with our partners, like the PBA, like the B League, like the KBL, on all of our decisions on expansion. If you look at Asian football, AFC, it's AFC Champions League in Asian football. It's 46 countries. Cambodia is playing China. Like, I could close my eyes and I know who's going to win the game, right? And what's the point? That's my view. What's the point? It's kind of a waste of time. So you have to think about, is there going to be, if it's Ginebra versus a team in Cambodia, we know it's going to be 150 to 50, right? That's not good for anyone. That's not good for the product. That's not good for the fans. So when I say measured, it's we have to do it in partnership with with FIBA, with our participating leagues, and we all have to have a core objective of why we are incorporating this league. Are they competitive? Are they going to be commercially valuable, etc. So the measured approach is really, not just to include because we want to have more teams or more markets. That doesn't make any sense. It has to be the best of the best that are going to compete. Not a single team in our ecosystem cannot win it. Not a single one. Yes, TNT and Morocco with injuries and a lot of those problems which they had. If they were TNT of the last season with Mikey Williams and all this, I guarantee you they could have won this. That's just a fact. So that's true across all of our teams.
The prize money increase when the league next month.
It goes from dollars to pesos. No. Yeah, it will.
So moving forward in the future, maybe 5 or 10 years, do you have plans of maybe reaching out as well to the other parts of Asia? Because currently there's also I think a Super League in the West Asia. So
Yeah.
do you have plans
West
of
Asia.
working with them? Or?
We already have good dialogue. Hagop's here. He's very involved in that as well, and we have a dialogue on that. I think my concern is this: if you're playing in Araneta on Monday and you're flying on Tuesday for a game on Wednesday, it's easy in ours because you're 3 hours away. But if you're going to fly to Dubai and fly back, the other thing is that if you have a 7 p.m. game in Dubai, are Filipino fans going to stay up till 4 in the morning? The beauty of us is we're all here. We're all here. It's no more Manny Pacquiao fights where you got to wake up at 5. Those were awful. It's much better when we're all in the same time zone. So, again, if we do, it's going to be a measured approach on how does this functionally work, and how does this, fit into the broader ecosystem.
So there's also other competition, FIBA, the ECL,
Basketball Champions League Asia.
what's EASL involved in? Are there any discussions?
We're involved. That's very Southeast Asia focused right now. I think that the ABL is finished, and FIBA is working very hard on putting together sort of that ecosystem for supporting those leagues. The ICC or Intercontinental Cup is a serious objective of FIBA, and they're pushing very hard for that. I think you'll see some news on where that is and how that's going to be run. But we're honored to be a feeder and part of that. But we're really just focused on what we're doing with ESL. So I'm not involved in ECL, the European feeder, the Latin American feeder, all of these feeders into the FIBA system on that.